Hello and welcome to the Grove Church Podcast. I'm Charlie Lofton, the lead pastor there, and we are so glad that you are joining us. Whether you are a member and you're just catching up on a sermon that you missed, or you're someone who's brand new, we are really glad that you are joining us. And if you are new in some way, and I know that a lot of people will do that, will listen to sermons first before they visit, I want you to know that we would love to meet you at any point. You can join us live in our services on Sunday, 9 and 10:30, or our streaming service at 10:30. Either way, we would love to be able to get to know you. And regardless of why you are here listening to this sermon today, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, good morning. If you are new, I'm Charlie. I'm the lead pastor here. I'm really glad that you are worshiping with us today, either here in person, online, or wherever you're joining us. Really glad that you're here. And if you are new, we got a little thing out here in the back. We call it First Step. It's just a way for me to be able to meet new people. So I would love to meet you after the service. You come back there. I've got a little gift I'd love to give you. Just meet you, find out any way that we can help you as a church. So would love to do that after the service. We are starting a new series today. We just finished up a 3-week series, kind of talking about some different aspects of our vision and how God's called us to share the gospel with people, show the gospel to people, and kind of live that out in acts of service. And so we're starting a new series today. For the next 6 weeks, we're going to talk about unity and how God has called us as a church to oneness, and not just oneness as a church here in this building, but churches all over the community and all over the world. And cover to cover throughout the New Testament, we see from Jesus how important this was to him. And then many times in letters from Paul, anytime churches are dealing with any sorts of problem, Paul just emphasizes how important this is. And so it's something that's very important to the heart of God, even though as the way it plays out, it just seems like that there is a lot of division within churches, between churches around the world. But even though this is very important to the heart of God. And so as I was thinking about this week and getting ready for this Sunday, I was thinking about, like, just imagine for a second, I'm not asking you to think about a specific person, but a category of person. Like the worst person there is, right? This is the worst, like the people that more than any other just bother you. They bother you, right? It may, in our world today, it may be someone from a particular political party or a particular political opinion. They may have a certain sort of background. There's a lot of in our world right now, a lot of animosity between socioeconomic classes. But like just the kind of person that more than anybody just really irritates you. All right? So you imagining that such a person. Now imagine a situation where you might, with that person, give them a huge hug and high five them and celebrate with them and cheer with them as if they were your best friend, even though you've got all these things that are just breaking you down. And really this person, they're just the worst. They're the worst. But you find yourself hugging them as if they are now your new best friend. And you might think, well, that would never happen. But I'm pretty sure that there have been some people over the last 12 months that if I were to find out what was true about them and their life and what they believed in, that I probably would not like them. But for one glorious moment, it was my best friend in the world. And we were hugging and celebrating and cheering together in common goal. Whether it's Bud Walton Arena, Donald W. Reynolds Stadium, Baum Walker Stadium. I've been to, in all three of those, baseball, football, and basketball, in the last 12 months, I've been to quite a few basketball games. But anyway, I've been to like some of the really biggest games that we've had. I was there in the building, and I am high-fiving and hugging absolute strangers at the pinnacle of these games. And not one time did I go, okay, before we continue, who did you vote for in November? In that moment, it didn't matter. Because at least for, 2 to 4 hours, all that mattered was this common goal and unifying principle that kept us together, where it just never came up. Because all that mattered was this, at least for that moment, a higher ideal. And what we're going to find today in today's passages, and hopefully over the next several weeks, is this idea that there is a greater ideal out there that is meant to keep us unified, even amongst all the things that can and do divide us. There's something bigger, there's something greater. And we're going to be looking today in Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians chapter 4, 1 through 6. And the church in Ephesus is dealing with its own problems with division right now. And I want to be a little careful talking about this because in the way things work, in the way things work in the world, this can be somewhat controversial right now in certain circumstances, because the challenge was between the Jewish people and the non-Jewish people. And the Jewish people believed that because they had inherited kind of, as God's people, and kind of Jesus, the foundation of Christianity is built on that they had special privileges within the church. And so Gentile Christians and Jewish Christians were in conflict with each other about whether or not they thought they were better, and whether or not their rules had to apply to them. And there's all this reason for division. And we see this not only in Ephesians, but in other books as well. It's like, do not let these sorts of things divide you, right? Do not allow culture wars, backgrounds, these sorts of things to divide you. And we find ourselves here talking about this in Ephesians chapter 4, starting in verse 1. As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. So this passage starts with this really cool phrase, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. And this passage, coincidentally, maybe a little bit of both, is really the front end of the passage we looked at last week, where we're talking about how the church has put people together to teach so that you can be equipped to do the things that God has called you to do. There are works of service that God has called you to do, and the church exists to equip you to do that. And one of the things that he kind of wraps up, so that you can be full. And the way that the phrase that Paul used there, we talked about this, where what he's saying is you have been given this status with God. Live a life that represents that. He has called you to something great. Live that way. And so really in Ephesians, all of Ephesians 4, this theme goes all the way through it. So we saw it last week. We see it again here. He says it this way, live a life worthy of the calling you've received. You've been called to be a son or daughter of God. You've been called to represent Jesus in the world. This is your calling. Live a life that matches the calling that you have. And the way that he says here, last week we looked at, using the gifts that you have to do works of service out in the world and serving one another. That's one of the ways you do it. One of the ways we do it here is through unity. And so the way Paul kind of explains it, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of come at it from the bottom up, because I think the way that he's explained, and just the way that we think and we kind of make logical progression, I think it's going to make more sense to us. We're going to start at the bottom, because ultimately he gives us kind of the reason for it, and then what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to do it. And we're going to flip it here, and we're going to start here at the end in verses 4 through 6. And obviously you'll hear, you probably heard it the first time, but we'll say it again. The repetition of this word one. There is one body, one Spirit, one hope when you were called, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God. Just emphasizing this idea of being one. There's just one. There's only one God. There's only one Jesus. There's only one faith. There's only one of these. And ultimately what Paul is wanting to communicate to us here is this, is that Christians everywhere, Christians within a church, amongst churches, and all around the world, Christians are, objectively, we are one. There is only one capital C church. Jesus does not look down and be like, man, I got lots of churches. Look at all these different groups of Christians that are out there, and I like all of them. No, there's just the one group. And I think it is important for us to start here because what Paul is calling us to is not an aspirational goal. And guys, if you work really hard, then one day we can be one body of Jesus. We can be one church. If you work hard, we can become this. He's not calling us to become something. He is telling us something that is true. Are you willing to live up to the thing that is true? Are you willing to do what needs to happen to live it out? But it is true. There is just one God. Well, we worship this God, and that church across the street, they worship a different God. We believe in this Jesus, and they believe in that Jesus. No, there is but the one Jesus and just the one God, and we are all representatives of that God and that Jesus. That is the reality. There's only one Holy Spirit. There's only one body. Again, this metaphor for all of the people that are followers of Jesus, there's just the one. And I think that is an important mindset. This is not something that there's nothing we have to do to make this a reality. The thing that we have to do is, based on this, can we live this way? And as many of you know, my wife and I, Heidi, we've been married for a little bit over 31 years. And we have 3 daughters, all girls. And we're about to move into birthday season. When we have our birthday season starting next month, we're going to turn 28, 25, and 14. And so I've had the privilege of being a dad for almost 28 years. And I've had the privilege of watching sisters for almost 25 years. Watching, and I've been thinking about this a lot over the last couple of months, really, about just how much I've learned about love and the power of relationships by just watching these beautiful relationships amongst my daughters, just watching sisters be sisters. I had a brother, he was 6 years older than me, so we kind of lived in different worlds, and plus, brothers, I mean, it's just different. It's just different. But there has been just this incredible beauty of watching them and the way that they love each other so well. And we'll talk about this in a little. They fight each other well, right? They can fight, they can love, and just the beauty and just the unconditional love that they have for one another has just been so beautiful to me. And sometimes, things happen. But the thing that they know and that they build off of, no matter what the conflict is, the reality is they're sisters. Now, there may have been a time in your life, or if you are a parent in your kids' lives, where like, I don't want that guy to be my brother anymore. He's not my brother. She's not my sister. I mean, you say that, but unfortunately, they live right next door to you. I mean, I'm sorry, you share a bedroom. You have bunk beds, and these are the only beds we've got, right? This is your sibling. This is your sister. So this by a bond of fortunate ? Placement into our family, right? You are connected to each other forever. As they grow older, they may live different places. They may do different things. They may even choose to kind of structure their lives differently. They are not the same. They're very different. And they have different sorts of values about different sorts of things. But the bond that holds them together, their sisterhood, is a beautiful eternal thing. And again, I have loved watching it, and I believe it is a model. When you see family, when you see sisters bond in the way that they love each other, I think it is a good model. The reality is we are one church, and we may express ourselves differently. We may ultimately, kind of on the fringes of some things, have some different values that we live out. But the reality of it is there is but the one Jesus. There is only the one God, and we are united. So we'll start there. And again, the verse before this is kind of when he gives us what the kind of the big picture command here is. Verse Verse 3. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. So all this is true. All this is true. You are one. You are united. You are one group. In the eyes of God, in the heart of God, we are one. Now, what you need to do about that is this. You need to make every effort to keep the unity. And I love this phrase, make every effort. It's a challenge. It is something that you have to work for. And because the value is so high, because it matters so much to Jesus, you need to make every effort. It's different than do what you can. Just try and see what happens. In every way that you can, try to make this thing that is true be true. And we'll say it this way. Christians everywhere are one, and we need to work to make the truth a living reality. We need to make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit. To keep it. It is a reality. Now work to keep it strong, to make it feel real. And again, the phrase unity of the Spirit, we've got, and he says in verse 4, because there's just the one body and just the one Spirit. And the unity of the Spirit is that everyone here has a common experience. There was a time when you were a sinner, isolated and separated from God, and the exact same Holy Spirit came to you, came to me, and said, "You need to turn from this because you're breaking yourself down. Like you've separated yourself from God. You're ruining your life. You need to turn from this and put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ." That same Spirit drew all of us. That same Spirit lives inside you. And that unity, like when I meet you, when we talk, it is the same Holy Spirit. I don't have a different one than you. And that Holy Spirit is just one. And we're one together, and live that out. There's not some difference. And the way that he says it is like, keep this unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace, which is an unusual phrase. We would never use that in any other context, and may not be completely on the surface intuitive what he means by it. But bond being the glue, what is the thing that holds us together? We've got the same Spirit, so keep that unity. And that bond is peace. There's a peace that was made between you and God. And God forgave you and gave you life through Jesus Christ. And he forgave me and gave me life through Jesus Christ. And so now I've got the Spirit. I have peace with God, and you have the Spirit, and you have peace with God. And God has declared both of us his adopted son or daughter, and has given both of us peace, given both of us his Spirit, and we are now bonded. Now let's keep our focus and attention there. Again, I said this, I've learned so much about love and relationships by just watching the beautiful relationships of the sisters that are in my house. But I'm telling you, they fight like nothing I've ever seen. Like, to me, I'm kind of like, my personality type is kind of a peacemaker, and I'll avoid saying something if I think it will hurt somebody's feelings, to the point to where I have to read books to tell me to be more assertive at different times, right? Because I'm like, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that. Like, I just want to be cool. I want you to like me, and the way that you like me is I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything that's going to hurt your feelings. That's not on their list. That's just not the way they do. If they say something, if like you do something they'll tell you. They will absolutely tell you. And every now and then, I will look at my wife and like, I would never say the thing that they said. I would never say that to anybody. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say to anybody. Much less the person I love more than anybody in the world. And here's the thing that's crazy about it to me. Like, I'll sit here and just kind of watch it from a distance. At one point, just like, And then 2 minutes later, we're just laughing and having a great time. I'm more upset about it than they are. Like, I still feel uneasy. Like, if I was involved in that level of conflict on a Monday, it might be Friday that I could start breathing again. But they immediately just kind of come in and out of, I didn't like that. Don't, no. How dare you? And then hugs and laughs and joy. Because they are eternally bonded to each other. They love each other and they fight like sisters. And fighting like sisters is different than fighting like an enemy. And out there right now in the wide world, there are all sorts of churches doing all sorts of wrong things. Those churches out there, they're baptizing babies. There's churches out there and they just get a little too enthusiastic when it comes to their worship services. There's some churches out there spending money on their buildings and grounds that I don't think is appropriate. And we like to stand over here and all sorts of judgment and be like, what is wrong with them? And we think that we're over here and there's something wrong with you. And so then, because you don't do it right, you've got the wrong sorts of people teaching. You've got the wrong sorts of production. You're baptizing the wrong way. You're doing communion the wrong way. You're even using the wrong word. It's the Lord's Supper, bro. Right? And because of that, you become a them, and we're fighting them. How do we get some of them to see the light and come over here to the right? And they become a competitor, an enemy. And sometimes you don't even have to think between churches. It can be here in the church. There may be somebody in here that you've got real beef with. It might be me, right? You may be like, well, I wasn't beefing with you, but about 20 minutes ago, maybe now I am. Found out you're hugging Democrats, and I'm like, I don't know, man. It's like, and we just... I want you, and this is the thing that I'm learning from watching my awesome daughters. It is possible to fight like sisters, to fight like family. Hey, that's not cool. And disagreement and conflict is important. Hey, I'm not sure you should do that. Have you considered this? You should consider this. What about this? What about this? And we learn to work some things out. And because we love each other and we're connected, we just recognize, hey, we're going to have some different values, and that's okay. And we can talk about it, and we can disagree, and we can still be fine because we're family, we're together, we're connected. And we don't have to fight as if we are enemies. We can be, because of the unity that we have in the Spirit and the bond that we have in peace, and we can focus on the fact of this reality. And the reality of it is we are one. Now let's do what we need to do to live out there as one. Let's make this truth a reality. And so the way he starts it, again, like we talked about, it's like, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling. Sometimes you act down here, but I want you to be up here. You are called to be one. Live like it. And then he gives some advice on how to do that. Verse 2. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. I love the word choices that he has here, because the reality of it is, if we are going to, with the relationships of people that we have here in this room, with relationships that we have outside of this, relationships with different groups of people all over the world, it's going to require some effort. It's not just, okay, I want to make the effort. But what do I need to do? What do I need to do to be able to do this? Well, I think at its core, this first word here, be completely humble. If we are going to work to make the truth a living reality, this requires humility. It requires humility. I have to get to a point to where there's division out there. And the division is because there are people out there that disagree with me. and they disagree with me about the issues that are more important than anything else. And if you disagree with me about the most important issues, then you have to be a them and we can be a we. And the question that requires humility is, who determined that you had all of the right answers and had the right ranking system on what is and is not worth being divided over? Well, this is so important, we should be divided over it. Who decided that? Did you decide that? And on this issue, this is the right thing to believe. Who decided that? Did you decide that? It was going to require a measure of humility to be able to I don't believe that I can say with confidence that on every issue, I'm 100% right. And that in the realm of things that are things worth being divided over and things that aren't being worth divided over and the ranking system, there's no way my ranking system is 100% accurate and aligns fully with the heart and mind of God. It's just not true. And so it's going to require a measure of humility on my part. But the three primary words he uses here I love: humility, being humble, being gentle, and being patient. Because another one of the aspects about being humble is sometimes the reason, you and I have a conflict, and it's a conflict that we think could make us live as if we're divided even though we're one, or the conflict we have with our church is different than that church and that it's worth being divided over even though we're one, right? Part of humility is recognizing that one of the reason why there is this conflict is because I'm wrong. What if I'm the one that's wrong? We're divided. I can't associate with you because we disagree, but I'm the one that's wrong. When sisters fight, somebody's wrong. And ultimately, it's going to take someone with a little humility that's you're right, I saw this the wrong way. I'm sorry. It could be that you're wrong. But not only does it say humility, it also says patient, which is good news. Usually God telling you to be patient is usually bad news because you don't want to be patient. Who wants to be patient? Who's I love learning patience. No one loves learning patience because the only way you can learn to be patient is someone to frustrate you, right? That's the only way you can learn patience. Yeah, I don't want to learn patience. But this is good. In this instance, patience is good because there's a conflict. There's division. Sometimes you have to be humble because you're wrong. Sometimes they're wrong, which that's good news. I get to be right. And I have to be patient with you. And I see this beautifully again in the sisters, especially with the huge age gap between the 28 and 25-year-old and the 14-year-old. That they love each other deeply as sisters, but sometimes the conflict is Layla's really young. She's just young. And she's going to have to get there. And so they have to be patient with her as she matures and gets there. And so sometimes we have to be humble and be like, that was me. I was out of bounds. That's on me. I'm sorry. Sometimes we have to be patient with somebody in order to help them. God will get them there. And then in between these two words, he uses the word gentle, which is a beautiful word. The way that I like to think about it, I didn't make this up, but it's like holding a newborn baby. You hold a newborn baby gently. There's a way to hold a baby too loosely where you would drop the baby. There's a way that you could hold the baby too tightly that would cause problems for the baby. There is an appropriate amount of care that you give when holding a baby. And there's an appropriate amount of care that I give to all the relationships that I'm in. I don't want to come across too strong, but I don't want to be too soft. Sometimes I have to tell you things you don't want to hear. But I need to be careful in the way that I say it. I need to give the appropriate amount of push and what's called for in the situation. And with that is the discernment that comes with it. Can I evaluate this well? Do I know? Am I humble enough to know when it's my fault? Am I able to be patient when it's yours? And can I give the situation an appropriate amount of care? can I bring the gentleness to it? Because the reality of it is, there are some of these issues about the way that we worship, about the things that we believe, that it's perfectly good and fine that we're in different rooms today. And obviously there are racial and cultural differences that put other people in churches on the opposite side of the world. Right? They're over there. There's all sorts of good reasons why we might not be able to be together. Logistics, distance, cultural differences, beliefs differences, but they're the kind of things like, hey, I see where you're coming from. And even though we may disagree, or even though there may be great distance, we are still together. We are still one. Again, as the sisters are becoming adults, they're living out differently, but always together. Loving like sisters, having conflict like sisters, but with this recognition of we are eternally connected to one another. Now, I was thinking about this week. I was like, man, I can easily, I feel like I can explain this passage and what Paul means, but like the other thing is like, how am I going to get anybody to care? Because we live in a world that values next level sorts of divisions. That it is in fact a good and honorable thing for me to exclude you because of your difference of opinion or thought or affiliation in these one or two different issues. It is good. It is a good and noble thing. In fact, the nobility of the movement can be shown in its ideological purity. And this is a good thing. How do we step into that world and say, actually, unity over that is way more important? Well, at its simplest, it's in the heart of Jesus Christ. And one of the ways he expresses it is I think should be very challenging for us. Where he says that the way that we love each other, and again, this is a universal deal, not just here in this room. The way that we all love each other, that's how people will know who Jesus Christ is. It will be the power of the love that we have for each other that will be one of the primary drawing factors. And if that's the case, and that is our mission, is to bring the hope of Jesus Christ to the world, and the way that they're going to experience that is through the way we love each other, then it matters. And so then what if we were able to move past some of our differences and show to the world the unity that comes from the love of Jesus Christ, that can allow us to put aside some of these differences that are dividing the world everywhere? I believe this moment is a great moment for that. Because if we were to do that, then we would be able to bring the hope and the unity of Jesus Christ to a broken and divided world. Let me pray.
Thanks again for joining us on our sermon podcast, and you can learn more about us at thegrovechurch.org. And if you go to thegrovechurch.org/connect, there's a form you could fill out. Just let us know that you've been listening. And if you want to dig deeper on some of these topics that we cover in our sermon podcast, or just in other issues of dealing with culture or theology, those kinds of things, you can check out our Cultivate podcast, which is on the same feed, however you found this particular podcast. So again, this is Charlie, the lead pastor at The Grove, and thank you so much for joining us.